This weekend was absolutely massive and very critical that you pay attention over the next 3 years. I told you guys from 2020 to 2025 what would happen, that by 2025, banks would be able to custody your cryptocurrency, that the very asset that they told you to run from is now the very asset they're going to be asking you to invest in. Now, here's what's going to happen from 2026 to 2030. Everything shifted. Boom! February 20th, 2026, which brought us into a new era from centralization to decentralization. Before I continue, this is not financial advice. I'm only sharing with you exactly what I'm doing in my own research. What I'm encouraging you to do is to do your own research, but I'm always going to be open and transparent with you exactly what I'm doing. This is all about authenticity. This is the era of authenticity. So we went from centralization to decentralization on February 20th, financialization back to production, to an even playing field monetarily. What you're experiencing is what's called the New World Order. It's not conspiracy. Ray Dalio taught you about it. Mark Rubio said the old world is dead. Just go watch the World Economic Forum. Keep talking about the New World Order. It's not some conspiracy, it's a new framing of the system. And I'm going to focus on the financial system. Remember, 2009 started our crisis stage, 2009 to 2030. Just like our grandparents went through their crisis stage from around 1930 to 1942. I told you guys it's always World War that brings in a new monetary system. After World War II, Bretton Woods was created, the IMF was created, the World Bank was created. We became the world's reserve currency, and Bretton Woods created the gold standard. By 1971, we detached from the gold standard. In the late 1970s, started going into hyperinflation, and then we went into financialization in the Reagan era, deregulation, public and private sector coming together. We got completely detached from reality and money in 1988. Look at 1988, specifically around the late 70s, all the way to 2026, the wealth gap has become absolutely massive. Our production has gone up, but our wages have not. My parents bought their house in 1973 for $25,000. It's now worth $400,000. People see that as growth. That is not growth. You need to reverse your brain. That is devaluation of your currency. Why do you say that? Because if they sold their home, they could only move into the same neighborhood. That's not growth. That's devaluation of your currency. That's a real world example of inflation. And if you think it's bad now, I guarantee you by 2029, we're going to go into high inflation. It's going to be unaffordable to own a home. The wealthy are going to become extremely wealthy. And the working class is moving down to the working poor. There'll be no middle class. Technology is going to replace a lot of jobs. And if you don't start to reskill or learn how to become an investor and take advantage of the new plumbing of the infrastructure of the financial system, you're going to end up a victim of this. So you have to pay attention to what they're doing. Remember, Trump left anti-crypto, came back full crypto. Bitcoin president, the Genius Act, Genius, stablecoins, saved the US dollar from collapsing, took over Venezuela, oil, and now we're at war with Iran. What you're going to end up by 2030, Bitcoin will be the new store of value. They're going to tokenize everything. Everything. Every bank by 2030 will be begging you to custody your cryptocurrency. They're going to call it institutional grade custody. They're going to be encouraging you to invest 1 to 5% into Bitcoin into your portfolio, maybe XRP, Solana will be doing it through ETFs. And the very people who told you to run from this, and the very people who keep funding you out of this, are the very people who are building the infrastructure right now. So the only people that will survive this is the ones that position themselves properly and quietly and are patient enough to ride out the volatility. Here's an example. Here's how early you are. Crypto is $2.3 trillion market cap. NVIDIA is bigger than the whole crypto market. One whale can make a huge move and collapse the cryptocurrency market, which is positive. Volatility is your friend, but you're not taught that. You're taught to run in red and buy in green. We teach our warriors to sell in green and buy in red. It's going to be really bumpy now that the wartime narrative's coming in, and that's when you buy. So what you should be doing is studying. What you should be doing is building conviction. What you should be doing is buying when it's red and selling when there's greed. Because there's one shot right now, one opportunity. And this is going to go by really fast. So what am I about to do if the markets go absolutely red and hopefully Bitcoin comes down to 40,000 by November? I'm buying on the way down. And what am I going to do when it comes shooting back up when they're ready to profit off this? I'm selling you guys the greed. And I take it out into defense because there's been over 32 major market collapses over 200 years and markets always go down. And they will come down hard. There will be a recession. There always is. Nothing new under the sun. Remember, money's cheap at the top. By the time it gets to us, it's expensive. They've already made moves and quietly positioned themselves by the time the media informs you that there's a problem. Remember, 10% of the population owns almost all the market, and that same 10% runs the information that goes through the media. So do your research, but make sure you're researching the right stuff. Don't try to get rich quick. Build a system, build structure, reverse engineer your brain, buy when it's red and sell when it's green, and you're going to be okay. And most of all, honor God and Jesus Christ in everything you do. Warriors, get your shit together. It's going to be a bumpy ride.